Disclaimer. This video contains content of murder and violence. Discretion is advised.
All right, let's travel back in time. We're going to rural Ireland at the turn of the 20th century. I want you to picture a world of tenant farmers, of coal carriers, a world with really rigid social codes. Today, we're digging into a case that absolutely shattered a small community and left a family in total ruin. So the scene is Clonbrock, this quiet little hamlet in what was then called Queens County. A hardworking guy named John Daly, a coal carrier, doesn't come home one night. And the next morning, his body is discovered. Suddenly, this tiny town is at the center of a desperate investigation into a violent and, as we'll see, a deeply personal crime. And you know, at the very heart of this whole mystery was a story that's as old as time, a story of forbidden love, rampant local gossip, and just simmering resentment. And pretty soon, all eyes would turn to just two people: the victim's wife, Mary Daly, and our young neighbor, Joseph Taylor. So let's start at the very beginning. It all kicks off on a Tuesday morning with a daily routine that's about to turn into an absolute nightmare. It's around 8 a.m. Mary Daly realizes her husband, John, he isn't in bed. So she sends their son, who's also named John, to go and look for him. You can just imagine it. The boy comes running back moments later, completely terrified, with the horrifying news that he's found his dad's body in a field right behind their home. So when the police finally get there, what they find is, well, it's a brutal scene. John Daly's body is lying there with these severe head wounds, the grass is soaked in blood, and there are obvious signs of a really fierce struggle. But the thing that immediately raised suspicion was Mary Daly's behavior. For reasons that were never really explained, there was a significant, puzzling delay between when the body was found and when she actually notified the authorities. And that was the first big red flag. To really understand what happened in that field, we have to pull back the curtain on the Daly household, where, let's just say, things were not okay. So you've got John and Mary Daly. He was a hardworking coal carrier, so he was often away for long hours, and yeah, he was known to drink. She was at home raising their two kids, but had gotten tangled up in what the locals were calling an improper relationship with a much, much younger neighbor. In this affair, it was the worst-kept secret in town. In a tiny community like Clonbrock, where your reputation was literally everything, the gossip was just constant, creating all this tension. And supposedly, the relationship between Mary and Joseph Taylor had led to frequent, really heated arguments between Mary and her husband. The stage was being set for a tragedy. Okay, so you have a body, and you have a motive that basically everyone in town is already whispering about. The police investigation, well, it didn't take long to gain momentum. The path to an arrest was actually pretty quick. First, the coroner confirms it. This was a violent assault, no question. The injuries suggested a blunt object and something sharp, maybe even a hay fork. The police quickly confirmed all those rumors about the affair, and, crucially, Mary Daly's own statements were inconsistent, they were suspicious, and they drew more and more attention right to her. Then comes the official inquest, which is basically a legal inquiry to figure out the cause of death, and they make it formal. After hearing all the early evidence, the jury delivered its verdict. John Daly did not die by accident. He was willfully murdered. The only question was, by who? So now that it's officially a murder, the police knew exactly who they were looking at. Just 9 days after the body was found, on June 26th, they arrested the two people at the center of this whole local scandal: Mary Daly and her lover, Joseph Taylor. They were formally charged with murder. So now we're headed to the courtroom. But there's a strategic twist here. The two of them, Mary and Joseph, they're not going to be tried together. They'd be tried separately, which is a legal tactic that's often used to keep co-defendants from turning on each other right in front of the same jury. Joseph Taylor is up first, and the prosecution, they come out swinging. They paint this damning picture. This wasn't some spontaneous crime. It was a premeditated plot. They argued that Mary Daly was the mastermind, that she manipulated her younger lover, pushing him, and even giving him alcohol to give him courage for the deed. And then comes the most devastating piece of testimony you could ever imagine. The couple's own son, John Daly Jr., takes the stand. He tells the court he was woken up by shouting, looked out his window, and saw his father in a violent struggle with Joseph Taylor. And then, the most chilling detail of all, he said he saw his mother, Mary, standing nearby, just watching it all happen. Yeah, after that testimony, what else could happen? The jury was out for just 40 minutes before they came back. They found Joseph Taylor guilty of murder, and the judge pronounced the only sentence possible: death by hanging. So, with Taylor convicted, it's Mary Daly's turn. Her children were called to testify once again, repeating their horrifying story. But this time, they added another detail, something even more damning. They said after the murder, their mother explicitly told them to lie, to tell the police they knew nothing about how their father died. So in her trial, you've got these two totally opposite stories being told. The prosecution paints her as this cold, calculating woman. They point to her calm demeanor after the murder, the delay in reporting it, and of course, telling her kids to lie. But the defense, they portrayed a completely different scene, a tragic fight between two drunk men that just got out of hand, with Mary as a terrified bystander, completely frozen in fear. And just when you think it can't get any worse for Mary, the prosecution drops another bombshell to prove this was all premeditated. Joseph Taylor himself testified that just weeks earlier, Mary had tried to poison her husband by putting carbolic acid in his tea. Apparently, John Daly took one sip and, without knowing it, saved his own life by refusing to drink anymore. So, all the cards are on the table, the evidence is in, the final chapter of this whole tragedy is about to be written. After deliberating for almost an hour, the jury came back. They found Mary Daly guilty of murder, but, and this is a big but, they added a strong recommendation for mercy. It was a plea to the court to spare her life, maybe because they were swayed by the image of a mother just caught up in a horrible situation. But in the unforgiving justice system of that day, that plea for mercy? It meant nothing. It was rejected. On January 7, 1903, Joseph Taylor was hanged at Kilkenny Prison, insisting on his innocence right to the very end. Just 2 days later, Mary Daly followed him to the gallows. So, what really happened in that field? Was it a drunken brawl that just spiraled into a crime of passion? Or was it a cold-blooded plot orchestrated by two lovers to get an obstacle out of their way? The truth was buried with them. What's left is the tragedy. Two children, left as orphans by their own testimony, a family destroyed from the inside out, and a dark stain on the memory of a small Irish community that was never the same again.